Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whenever you're reading or watching this, I guess. Good, yeah, that little giggling.
Hi.
Katie Perez is here with me, Ginger Lewman, and this is our, one of our, our. Good. People love you anyway, so. Katie Perez.
Hi, guys.
One of our Facebook Live posts for the Life Practice PBL model. Roughly each week, right?
Thereabouts. Every other, maybe?
I don't know. I'm not really paying attention.
I'm not counting anymore.
There was a schedule, and we just stick to it. But we get together and share a little bit about the questions that we've been getting asked for years, or me for years. Have you been years, PBL?
2.
Okay, well, that's more than one. What about this about PBL? We get asked a lot of questions, and so I thought, and just dragged you in on it. Thanks. Why not answer these live? Some of these questions are really, all of them are really important. So tonight's schedule, did you just break that pen?
I did. I broke the pen.
I just broke that pen.
Sorry.
She's nervous. Actually, Katie's a little sick today, so that's why we're doing this switch back and forth. But she's a trooper. She's here. Yay. Okay. When you come in, say hey and let us know you're here. And if you want to share this, that would be super duper awesome.
Yes, please share. We like your friends.
Sharing
is caring.
Yay! So anyway, tonight's topic is about scheduling, and we get a lot of questions about how do I schedule the time, and the answers I think are different for elementary and secondary, and so that's why I've wrangled poor Katie in on this, because I can kind of talk. I mean, if we're talking 5th grade and up, I'm pretty confident. 4th grade and below, I'm doing some guesses, but she has really great answers because when people press her on them, she has examples. I'm like, well, you should be able to. So let's talk about this. How do I have time to do project-based learning? My day's so full of what? What do you hear?
Well, at elementary, well, there we go.
Sorry.
Elementary, you're in one room most of the time, and you have reading and math, and then to your time, and then you have a half-hour, 40-minute lunch, and PE music, and the counselor comes in, and art comes in, and you go to library at some point, and then how many assemblies do we really need in a school year? Love them. They're always great stuff, but they always seem to come at the worst possible moment. I'm right.
Truth.
So your day's full. Mm-hmm. So when do you do PPL? I have some answers.
Okay. Well, there's that. And then when we talk secondary as well, just kind of a teaser, I guess. In the secondary world, in middle school and high school, and then less in middle school, but it can happen there, but definitely in high school is, I don't have time to collaborate with other teachers. I don't have that built into time. Or how can I integrate content with other teachers when the kids I have here are not the same ones they have there? Are you kidding me? And I only have 50 minutes anyway, so how am I supposed to really do anything in that amount of time? Those are a lot of the questions I get at that age level. If you guys have questions that we haven't talked about already, we're going to talk about the answers or possible solutions, multiples to this, right?
You got a list.
You have, oh my God, look at that list. Wait, there it is. It's okay. They're just getting sick. Okay, so, I don't know what I'm shooting at. I'm just going to call it a long week, that's all. So before we dive into this too deeply, I want to encourage us to consider what my friend Kevin Honeycutt talks about with straitjacket thinking. When we, if the reality is that things get in our way, such as, Ginger, I can't do that, I don't have time. Ginger, I can't do that, I don't have money, or this isn't allowed. And some of those things, they are legitimate, they are real, but there are probably things that we can do. If we just, when we're faced with a struggle, say, well, I can't do it because, then you're never going to get over it. If you say, I can't do it because of this, and that's the reality, but what if I was able to do this? So if this is reality, okay, it is. So now what? That's the question that gets you out of what we call straitjacket thinking. Because if you're just stuck in that straitjacket, right, and you can't get out of it, I think if you're in a straitjacket, not literally, but in an educational sense, if you can wiggle, you can maybe start to dance. And if you can wiggle or dance, you can probably do something amazing for kids. So I'm going to caution us when we're talking about these things today. There are some things which some people will immediately bounce off. They'll chafe against it and say, well, I can't do that. If that's the reality of your situation, now what? You're just not going to do it? Anyway, I just want to caution us with that straitjacket thinking today. So let's hit Katie first. With some of the questions. Well, we hit some of the questions, but we'll review this briefly. And then talk to us about what we can do about scheduling in the elementary classroom. I'm seeing my friend Carrie in there and Connie and Jill, and we got the right audience here. So here we go.
All right. So the first thing that we really have to make sure we're doing at elementary is using our time wisely. I think back to the beginning of my career, and I was very fortunate to have a drinking fountain and a restroom in my classroom, which meant I never had to take a whole class restroom or drink break. And so I got to do lots of crazy projects and fun things because I had all of this time that later, when I moved to a different building, suddenly was used doing a whole group restroom break twice a day. Do you know how long that takes?
How long does it take?
Like 15 minutes.
Really?
Yes, because you have to sit 20 kids somewhere in the hallway, and they all go in like 3 at a time.
I've seen it.
They mess around because they're not really going to the bathroom. And there's a half an hour of your day completely wasted in the bathroom. So they go to the bathroom at home by themselves, starting at, I don't know, 4. My kid goes to the bathroom by herself. Let them go to the bathroom by themselves. Every once in a while, half an hour out of your day. So that's tip number 1 for me. Whole class bathroom break, maybe at the beginning of the year. Get used to the rules. Then let them, don't be in control of their bladders. They can do it themselves. So that's a half an hour out of your time. Also think about the travel time that you take places. So when I look at a master schedule for a lot of buildings, a lot of times we're spending an extra 5-10 minutes in our day planning for the time it takes us to get 3 or 4 rooms down the hallway. So if you're using your time wisely, suddenly you probably have an extra 30 to 40 minutes in your day every day to use for something like PBL. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that fluff time, right? And I've been there. I scheduled it in too because I want to be on time to places. But then if you start thinking instructionally, we could use it. So one thing that I'm just happen to be pretty skilled at is looking at minutes and planning schedules. So the last building I was at, we planned a master building schedule. Every grade level had at least 1 hour a day for social studies or science. Yes, an hour a day, not 30 minutes 3 times a week, but every single day. K2, it was an hour. Grades 3 through 6, about an hour and a half. Okay, the time is there. It's a matter of how you use it. Another little tip is that launch these things during a social studies or science time, and then allow kids to work on projects throughout the day. So you probably are going to think in your brain, oh, but I have to have a 90-minute reading block. Yes, you, the teacher, need 90 minutes to teach small group reading. Each child doesn't need 90 minutes of small group reading. Oh. They need 90 minutes of time in which at one point they get pulled for 20 to 30 minutes of small group reading. They still have an hour of independent work time, right? So in that hour, plan out a station for, we want that phonics station still, I get that. We want that writing station, but why can't that writing station be connected to the PBL that you're doing later in the afternoon?
Yes.
You have the time. It's a matter of finagling it to make it work for what your goal is. And when you start to see that the PBL could be connected throughout your day, throughout your math, and throughout your ELA, suddenly it becomes crazy to not figure out little pockets that you have where kids could be doing research, they could be doing writing, they could integrate their learning, right, on their own. You're not integrating it for them, they're integrating it themselves. And then one other little tip for scheduling it connected to that ELA piece is look at your curriculum that you're teaching. Does it already have in a built-in review week? I can think of 3 reading curriculums that do that. So I know Scott Forsman has one. Is it?
Oh, you asking me about reading curriculum?
I am. I'm a little ill today. The second one just blew my mind. Starts with an H. And Wonders, they all have a built-in review week at some point in their curriculum. Use those. Use that time to teach it differently. You know, I mean, we're reviewing something. Do we have to review it the same way we already taught it the previous 5 weeks? No, you don't. So find a way to integrate that differently and do a PBL. You have a whole week. Why would you not use it?
Right.
It's crazy.
So I've got a question here. Kara didn't really ask this as a question, but I hear it as a question. So Kara says, this is what I want to do so badly. So if I may, I know you're not feeling well, so if you want some time, what are first steps for a teacher who really wants to do these sorts of things? Paul actually kind of asked the same sort of question as, he says, it's like, sorry.
Balanced lit.
Glad you can read that.
PBLAs, I know. Good eyesight. Right, so I think the first step is if you are using, so Kara, I know you're using Sadler reading curriculum, right? And then Paul, you're using just kind of a hodgepodge of lots of different things since you're doing the balanced lit approach. Find those essential questions that are already outlined in your curriculums, because I know they're there, and then make them better and use that as the launch point for the projects you want to do. Sometimes I'd even have kids change those questions themselves. So pose them the essential question that was in the curriculum itself, and then say, what does this make you wonder? And then you're crafting a question from that point. And then you spend a little bit of time planning the PBL after you kind of got the kids engaged. So it's a little twist on the planning process, but it gets them already hooked. And now I want to learn what's in that Sadler reading curriculum, because I crafted a question and now I need to know those reading pieces.
I am so glad that you mentioned, now they don't use the essential question, because an essential question is not the same thing as a driving question.
Not the same thing as a driving question.
You've got to shift it a little bit to where
Exactly.
it's a challenge, a bigger thought, because those essential questions are just, what content are you going to touch?
It's a content in question form, right? So,
Right.
but if you pose that to the class and then say, what does this make you wonder? A lot of times you can get pieces to start building your driving question from there.
Well, and it's really, it's a formative one. It's a hook-ish too. But and it's from what they're curious. Of course, they're going to get hooked more.
Especially when we're talking K5, right? K6, I think it's important to really make sure that they're invested in it, because they don't have the same life experiences always that 7th through 12th graders have. And so it's helpful to get their input when you're creating that question.
Love it.
Just my opinion. But it
Anything
works.
else?
Oh, I do have one other thing on my list, and it's a piece of management. So a lot of times you think, well, I only have a 30-minute block. So what do I do in that 30-minute block? As I have to check in with all of the kids, and then by the time we get started, it's time to put away. So one thing I've always done in my classroom when working with any kind of project, whether it's PBL or just a base end of content type of project, is three check-in questions at the beginning of every work session. And they're either done on Post-its, if you are a Post-it person, which we should all have stock in Post-it, or
Padlet.
right, or something like a Padlet, or Seesaw would work, Edmodo would work, anything like that. And Google Classroom could work.
Right.
So the three questions are, what is your goal for today? What is your next step? What do you need from me? And at the beginning of every session, they answer those three questions. They know what they are. They're used to them. I don't have to listen to everybody's answer. The whole class does not have to waste time listening to everybody's answer. So they quickly answer those three questions, and then they turn them in, whether it's on electronic or on paper. And that gives me about 3 or 4 minutes. I can quickly sort through their responses and prioritize my time. Where am I going to go in this 30-minute session? At the end, they answer the same questions. Did you accomplish your goal today? What are your next steps? What do you need from me? And that helps them goal set, and it also helps them
Think ahead
of what they're going to
Yes,
do, and
yes,
stay on
yes.
track for that short period of time, so that it's always a well-used time. Kara, you're right. You guys do have collections, but collections would feed into PBL beautifully. I feel like we should sit down and have a conversation, because I have a lot of ideas for that from the year that I got to see collections in action. So maybe we can hook up soon.
Yeah. And if you are, thank you, by the way, for folks listening in on these Facebook Live conversations. I do want to make it clear, these aren't really training. I mean, it's a piece here and there about a big question, but if you haven't been fully trained, if you haven't gone through a series of sessions with Katie and me.
Not Kevin.
Or Kelly. I was going to say Kelly because she just came in. Anyway, hi, Kelly. Just listening to these is not going to let you be totally successful. These are, if you've tried, if you had some training here, and taking you deeper to the next step. So I just want to make sure we're clear with that.
you to come to training and get more. It's kind of both, right?
I guess, yeah, that's a good
I could
idea.
totally hear something and then say, ooh, I need to know more about
Yeah.
that. Who could I call?
Or if you can't make it here, there's a book.
Yeah, there's a book. I think you wrote it.
Lessons for life practice learning. And that really is like full step. What you get better from the face-to-face is that you actually get to practice with us in real time and get your specific questions answered. But in lieu of being here with our shining faces, I think that the book's a good start. Okay. Did you see Jill's kind of follow up here for you?
Oh, I'm like getting really close to the camera so I can read it.
It's okay. People get used to that.
Yes, they work, Jill. You're at a secondary level, I think, right? But they're great questions. They really are helpful.
8th grade. Yeah, that's where she's at. So at the secondary level, and you were talking K-5, and I know officially that 5th grade isn't necessarily secondary level, but I think that they've got more abilities than sometimes we ask them to practice. So I personally, when I'm talking PBL secondary, I'm including 5th graders. So I just want to clear that out there. Hi, Nanette, coming in. Yay. So the questions that I get secondary are a lot of, how do we get that time to collaborate? If I'm an English teacher and I want to be working with my social studies teacher or my science teacher or something like that, I don't always have the same kids, and or I can't. How do we integrate these topics together? One of the things that I have let folks have as a suggestion, and a couple of folks have tried it and said, oh my God, this was perfect, is what I'm calling it. Maybe other people call it, maybe they say these things, I don't know. I call it a field trip in place. So if you were going on a field trip with some kids, you would have them sign the permission slip, and then you would leave for the day, and you'd bring them back at the end of the day, and they get permission from their other classes to go, or they just catch up with it because that's how field trips work. And we spend a lot of money on them. What if we were to do a field trip in place? And to take the whole day and go to a part of the school, not even have to leave on a bus, and do a full deep project there with our collaborating teachers to where that we have time together. Now, but I don't have the same time planned and that sort of thing as them. You do when you're on a field trip. You're gone together the whole day. And what can that matter? What can that do? And if you do that a couple of times, could you maybe do a 2-day field trip? Because you're still hitting curriculum. It's not like you're going to the zoo or a museum and kids are just farting around most of the time, right? I mean, this is real curriculum and skill building and learning. And by the way, we don't always just fart around at the zoo and museum, but I'm just saying. Okay. We can also reach out to colleagues, and I have before, I've reached out to them if there was some concept in science or some concept in whatever their topic was that I may not be totally expertise in. I don't have a ton of time to do a lot of research because, hi, classroom teacher, right? Just going on. So I would reach out to another teacher and say, hey, I'm hitting this. What do I need to make sure that that's great resources for the kids? What do I need to make sure that they're really talking about with this? Am I going too deep? Am I going too light with this? And just talk to them about what my plans are. They don't have to come into my classroom. We do not have to share kids, but I can still pull that integrated piece in by knocking on their door and saying, help me with this one. I want to make sure it's good quality. And I can fake my way in knowing stuff with PBL because I say things like, golly, I have no idea. Truth is, I don't know, but I can learn a little. And if I have great concept thoughts from a teacher who is an expert in that area, we can go further. I also want to plan my year at the beginning of the year or at the beginning of the summer with colleagues. If you're in a middle school that has a team, sweet, lucky you, go on with your bad selves. High school level, you have a department. Well, you're not going to bring your whole department together to do a project, probably. You've had your content, but you might. Not going to judge there. But if you were to sit down at the very beginning of the summer or somewhere in the summer and say, okay, I'm writing on this long chart paper or something like that. There's August, September, October, November, December. And in this month and in these weeks to weeks, I'm going to hit this topic and this topic. And I can see this across my team or across content. Maybe I decide to I want to really work with this other teacher. Maybe in high school, I'm not working with 4 other teachers because that can get terribly overwhelming, especially in a small school. Actually, probably worse in a big school because a small school, you're rubbing shoulders all the time with content because you're probably teaching more than one topic. large school. You just kind of sometimes, that's what I teach. Anyway, you collaborate with that teacher. Yeah, it's your own time, but that's what we do because we care about kids and we care about education. And if we're going to do something different, it takes them ahead of time. We know this. So we write those out and we say, where can we come together naturally? And where can we, I can't teach this. You're teaching it in October, but I have to wait until March for this. Okay, so then how do I not just reteach the same thing? How can what you teach in October really support so I can take them just crazy deep in May? So, yeah. By the way, thanks, Kelly. She says agreed about 5th grade. Yay. And Connie says, what training session would you recommend for me? High school math in Southeast Kansas. Training session at ESDAC would be good. Actually, we hosted some when was it? It was this fall. And I don't know that we have any already for the spring, but I'll probably need to put some in because, Connie, you're not the only person who's asking. I do have a secondary session set up that we're in the middle of a series, but you would be welcome. Connie, let's talk. Maybe not today, maybe tomorrow, because what time is it? Okay, let me keep moving forward. I only have 50 minutes. Well, you answered that. You know, by the time the kids get in and I get the attendance and it really, with the secondary, it's rough in that 50-minute period because the kids are just, I don't know what to do, and they're going to try to avoid things because that's how they've been doing it for how many years? 10, 15 years? What percentage of their life has been spent practicing and honing those bad habits of how to do school? Just wait till I'm told what to do. Or the bad habits of the bad attitude where a kid says, I don't care what we're doing in here, or they think they're stupid or they've labeled themselves as such. It's hard to help them get over that at first. But as you work through and as they continue to get experience, it gets way smoother. And you can still do this. Remember that straitjacket I kind of talked about at the beginning? You can wiggle. You can wiggle even in 50 minutes. It's better than what? Them not caring, them not really trying to do a high quality, them not seeing the pertinence of what we're doing to the world beyond the four walls of school. That's harsh. It's important that they have those experiences. So I promise it gets better. Isn't that, didn't somebody else already say that as a logo? It gets better. But it does. You know, your first few times are really horrible and they're hard. And in that secondary, we just find ways. I would love if I'd say, do these 3 things and your life will be perfect. I'm not going to lie to you because each school is different. Each teacher's personality is different. We can do this. So, yeah, I guess that's kind of where I've run out of thoughts. Do y'all have questions here? And if you do, and you're here live, drop them in. If you don't have questions, if you do have questions but we're not live, like you're doing this or watching this the next day or whatever, drop your questions in there still because I get notification on this. And apparently somebody else who's an admin on my page does too. And they'll just tell you, hold on, we'll be right back with you until I get the opportunity to come in and answer your question better. If you're asking me an elementary question,
I'll answer it.
Do you want to do that? We haven't, but I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I'm like, do you have time to do that?
I do have time. And
okay.
I think, you should be able to, Katie Perez within there, and it should tag me in it. If not, I check back for a while on these videos and answer questions when I see something relevant. So
I've seen that happen. So.
We want to answer your questions. So
yeah,
do ask.
It's important. If you don't ask,
you'll never know.
Or you'll just do a terrible job. And some of these things aren't as complicated as we sometimes want to think they are. All right, 20 minutes, y'all. Oh, good question right here. Monica says, you do great things. Thanks for the training you did at my school. Oh. Hey, Monica, you have a great option. One of the things that I have, by the way, thanks for coming in. I know you're taking care of a sick hubby right now. She had a question, Monica, or you've started something new this year, Monica, yes? You started a... Can you type in there what it's a modified block? What's it called? What she is, by the way, I'm just going to say this, Monica. She's an administrator in a school who says we need to do PBL, but the schedule's in our way. We're in 50-minute periods, and she said I will remove that block. Yay! Because what we want to do is hold on, dance in and wiggle in our straitjackets until the admin says, "Oh my gosh, this is great for kids. We should do something different about this and let them really shine. And Monica did that, the Flex Modified Schedule. And you already shared that link with me, and I'll drop it in here, or if you could drop it into this live. I'm glad to see that you guys are seeing some real success with that this year, because you are an admin in a very, very traditional based school on purpose. That's how the school is designed. And it's hard to get parents sometimes to understand a different type of flex schedule, and for kids to, oh, why do we have to be in this class for this long? And it is long if you're doing terrible work to them. But if it's work that they want to do because you've helped develop something beautiful and use their words and use their thoughts and use their passions and interests, then it's not a long period of time. In fact, my kids used to beg for more time, and we'd be like, kids, we've worked on this 3 hours. We have other things to do today, because I could.
A lot of times with my goal setting thing, kids would write that what are my next steps, and they'd come to school the next day and they'd already be done. Right? I mean, and we're talking fourth graders, fifth graders here, but it would put it in their head, and so now I have homework, right, that's been assigned. I didn't assign it to them because I don't believe in homework, but that's a whole other show.
Oh, then maybe that's another one, is homework and PBL.
Then they would take it home and they would do their research so that the next time they can say, I've already met that goal and now I'm ready for a next one. So the ability for them to, at that level, we're talking 10-year-olds setting quick attainable goals, and then that feeling of success, it makes them want to do more, and so it
totally works for olders too.
Love it. Well, of course, I believe it would work for olders. It's exciting to see when it works for younger kids, because we think that's a higher level skill or something, and I just don't think it is. If you expect them to do it, they do it.
That's right. Well, and olders, we still need to start with short attainable things, because again, they've had years of practicing bad habits. You can get them to sustain their attention longer if you walk them into it. Just lost me. I'm sorry. If everybody else is still here, give me a thumbs up or a love or something. Maybe I'm just gone. It looks like I'm still here. Jill asks, how long would a PBL project tend to take, or does it differ depending on the topic of the project? Yes. I guess we're still here. Jill, if the more you want to integrate with other places, or the more content you want to push into one place, it's going to take you longer. The kids need time to process and build and think and learn. But that being said, I've done a project in one day. And when I say one day, I mean a full day, like from 8:30 till 4:30. I've done some pretty tasty projects in our training in 45 minutes. I didn't get deep in what I needed the kids to know. How long did we do? Do you remember at Nest City? You didn't come with me, but you have you're younger with a better brain. Our cardboard boats. That was one day.
Yeah, I think I'm not.
Or 2 days maybe.
I think it was a couple of days.
I was there one day.
Yeah, I think it was a couple of days that they worked on it.
I think we gave them one day in school to work, and then if they wanted to work after school, they could, but they didn't have to. Almost all the kids worked after school. Can we call that hooked in the gills? I love that stuff. So Jill, one of the first things I think we want to do is think about how much time do we have? Because you can start with a project, and 3, 4, 5, 8 months later, you could say, oh, we're still on this. You have to set your hard deadlines right away, and just stick to them. You got to know.
I think at elementary, I think that a 1 to 2 week project is really usually your goal, assuming that you can work on it for some period of time every single day. I think after that you start to lose that, I think you refer to it as a sense of urgency. That
I call it project fatigue.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. So 1 to 2 weeks I think is great. If you have something that's going to take longer over time, then I like to do like a relaunch. So we get to kind of like a midpoint, and we have a hard deadline of what our midpoint is, and that leads us into what the next step of the project is going to be. We relaunch it to kind of increase that urgency again.
Yeah, I like that. I've actually had a year-long project, but we couldn't eat it all at once, and I couldn't hand it to them. And again, gurus will be like, well, that's not PBL. But project fatigue is real, particularly in kids who are not used to having a hard, sustained attention, because you can sustain attention if you're not really attentive. You can do a month-long project and just going to say it, BS your way through it as a student. But if you're really in it and thinking really hard, your brain dies, okay, or grows. Maybe it's painful and growing. It's like sore.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like a muscle, right? Like
It's
that,
not.
that muscle.
I was
atrophy.
about to
No,
say that, but-
I don't mean like it is a
I
muscle,
know,
but
I
I
know.
mean like that feeling.
Yeah.
Sometimes I like to compare it to like a steak, and you want to let things marinate for a while, you know. And sometimes it just needs longer to marinate.
It's, yeah, some of us.
Tastes better afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brain.
Brain,
Okay,
yeah.
wow. Happy Halloween. I'm looking over here. Monica is giving us a Google Plus community. Thanks, Monica. Anytime you guys have support that supports what we're talking about, drop this in here. This is not just us wonking, although it really seems like it. I would love this to be more interactive. Tanya, Ms. Cunningham says, antithesis of project fatigue, offering an intro PD meeting that would last 1.5 hours. Any great and quick PBL ideas to hook teachers? Yeah, that's what I do. I always try to make it something that will be valuable to them right now. Later on down the road, maybe it's a week down the road, maybe it's a month down the road, they get to pick, right? But they're building something that is going to be valuable for them. We can't just say, here's examples for kids. I believe that in PBL, just within it, teachers teach how they're taught. And so we need to create their professional learning in a way that is PBL. We give them a challenge. They have to go through it. They want to go through it. You know, if it's just me telling you, you're going to do this, that's not PBL. That's terrible. And so I have to figure out who my audience is. So, hi, Jenny. Jenny is one of our girls in Virginia.
Oh.
And of course, she's in there doing some big things. She's at a school within a school, so she's got a very flexible schedule, but she doesn't have them all day long. But within that 4-hour period, they have a lot of flexibility. That's that school who's large. I know she doesn't think it's large. It's 1,300 kids in the high school. I know. Hi, welcome to Kansas, but not everybody in here is in Kansas. That they recognized they wanted something different for all their teachers, but they knew they weren't going to just dive in head first into maybe the baby pool, and we didn't know. And so she's in a great opportunity with good leaders who say, let's let y'all take the bleeding edge on this. We're going to give you 4 hours and a day with these kids. I love it. Connie talks about having cardboard boats for at least 18 years. Isn't that awesome? Yeah. It's just it's something, the school said, hey, Ginger, we want to do this. You know, can you help us with this? And I was like, yeah, I sure can. Because it doesn't really matter what you're doing. It's a process that you're learning. So this is a really long one.
Yeah.
But I love this interactivity.
It was great. Yeah, questions
Yeah.
are great tonight.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off here. Go ahead and put your questions in here. I'm going to tell you. If you can't tell, let me just give you a quick. We're at our offices right now. We're not going to walk over by our desks because Katie's is beautiful and mine is, well, you might suggest that it might be a little, what do we call it? Creative. It's a space for creativity. No? Are you going to call it messy? It's my desk. It's for creative people. Anyway, just saying thanks for being here, and we'll talk to you soon. When's our next one? Do we know?
I don't know.
I do. Let me grab it on the calendar. Oh, she's not there. If somebody's smarter than me and faster than me, drop it in if you know. I updated my computer today, and like all my keynotes left, and I don't have it. All right, so I'll post it in here in a moment. Look, Jenny, learning is messy,
It is messy.
particularly for me.
Not your desk.
Shut up. I learn at my desk. We're good friends, I promise.
We are.
Okay, see y'all later.
Good night.
Good night.